RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competition, whatever it is on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel right now, an interview, breaking news update with Thackeray Mubarak, who posted yesterday about his kidney status and the time that he has spent in the hospital for the last week.
Yeah, Thack posted on his Facebook that he had some kidney issues. Well, it seemed like more than just kidney issues because his creatinine was 10 and normal is up to 1.3. So they wanted to put him on dialysis, and he refused. And I guess his electrolytes have been good, which is usually not good for people with kidney issues. So I wanted to get an update. What's going on? Because you hear a million rumors, and people make up all kinds of crazy stuff. So I like to hear the person themselves tell the story. So Thackeray told us what was going on. If you want to get the full update, check it out now. It's a good interview. Obviously, Thack is a good friend to the show, and we're all praying for him, and hopefully nothing long-term is really wrong with him. It might have just been a short-term type of issue. If there is something long-term, then obviously he's going to update us, and we'll support him the whole way through if anything needs to be further done. So, but it's a good show just also on what to look out for health-wise, so that nothing like this could happen to you as well.
So again, that interview right now at RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. And of course, we send our very best to Thackeray Mubarak. Let's go to the questions. First, we go to the Dave Palumbo app, Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question is from I love the content for females. What are your suggestions for a female using Nolvadex and Proviron? Can Proviron cause any side effects, including hair loss?
First of all, I want to say that the Dave Palumbo Experience app will be getting a facelift. We actually have a new app coming out. We're going to transition everyone over to that. It's going to be more great stuff. I promise you're going to love it. But talking about women and Proviron and Nolvadex, Nolvadex is an estrogen receptor blocker. It just blocks estrogen receptors, so the estrogen that women produce can't get to the receptor. Thus, you don't get those estrogenic effects like water retention and more fat deposition. So it's good for women to use like the last 8 weeks to harden them up. You're not going to get any side effects from that. Maybe drier skin or hair or something like that, but that's about it. Now, as far as Proviron goes, Proviron a lot of women take because they think it's an estrogen receptor blocker, and it's not. We thought that years ago too, because Bill Phillips told us that in his anabolic reference guide. Turns out it's not. It's supposed to supposedly free up more testosterone off its binding proteins. I don't think it does that as well. I think it's kind of like a waste of a steroid, to be honest with you. I don't recommend it for anyone to take it, including women. It is technically an androgen. It doesn't have any anabolic properties. So as far as I'm concerned, for women, it probably is not going to do very much of anything. It might help you store glycogen better, because that's what androgens do. But you might get some side effects from it. You might not. Most people don't. But once again, I think that people don't get side effects from it because I don't think it does anything. So some people might dispute me. I just think Proviron is kind of a waste of a drug, to be honest.
Second question from the Dave Palumbo Experience app from Mikey D. Dave, in the app, you have a diet posted that emphasizes health. It is much lower in protein than I'm used to being a competitor. Should I substitute in additional carbs or fat to set off the difference in calories from my current diet as I transition to a more healthy approach?
Yeah. I have a health diet in there, that has lower protein intake. Because, if you're not trying to put on massive amounts of muscle, there's no reason to be eating overwhelming amounts of protein. I think a high protein diet is healthy, but the bodybuilding diet with the 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound that you weigh is very high, and on a regular basis, it's probably not good for your health long term because you're putting a tremendous strain on your system to break it down. It will build more muscle though, So there's that. What's your goal? If your goal is, hey, I just want to live a healthy life, I want to maintain what I have, then there's no reason to eat 400 grams of protein a day. You can eat 150 grams of protein a day and still be very healthy and still maintain all your muscle mass. To maintain muscle, you need a lot less protein than you do to build new muscle. Having said that, I like to, boost fat intake to kind of compensate for maybe the lack of protein. But the truth is that when you reduce your protein consumption, you're also reducing calorie consumption, because that's another thing that leads to long life. We found lower caloric intake. So if I'm making a health diet, I probably want to add more fats, a little less carbs, because at least fats give you a little more energy, fuel for the same bang than say a carb, which is like half as much, bang for your buck. So once again, moderate carbs are good, so you're not overtaxing the pancreas, having to produce more insulin. Fat intake can vary according to your energy expenditures. Someone like myself would eat more fat because I have a higher energy expenditure. And then protein would be moderate. Once again, maybe a half a gram of protein per pound that you weigh, something like that. Or maybe 3/4 of a gram. And that's probably a healthier way to go. For my detoxification program, if you look at that on the app, or you ask me, I can send that to you for free as well. I send those out all the time. That's very low protein, but we're only doing that for 3 weeks, and that's to give the digestive system a chance to kind of regenerate in a sense. And that's a different approach. And once again, if you email me at huge285@aol.com and ask me for the detoxification program, I will be more than happy to send it to you.
Game Mac, what should daily intake of sodium and potassium be for a bodybuilder, and can you take too much potassium?
You could definitely take too much potassium, and you can, if you take enough of it, you'll die. You'll give yourself a heart attack, basically. That's how they put animals to sleep. It's one of the components of that injection they give is high potassium, and that stops the heart. So you don't want to be. The truth is that you don't need to supplement with potassium. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. Whatever's in the foods you're eating, the multivitamin you're taking, is probably plenty. As far as sodium goes, I would consume, if you're working out and you're sweating on a regular basis, you need to eat salt. The great thing about sodium is that if you eat too much of it, your body will just excrete it. That's what your body does. That's what your kidneys do. Your body only absorbs what it needs. Now, if you're always restricting sodium and then you eat it one day, a lot of it, you're going to over store the stuff because your body is in a sodium deprived state. So it releases a lot of the hormone aldosterone. Aldosterone then, when it sees sodium, absorbs it along with water. So that's why people who don't eat sodium on a regular basis and then they have a salty meal, they get bloated from it. I eat salt all the time. I could eat a whole pizza pie. I won't retain any extra water above and beyond what I normally would retain from eating my normal salt, because I don't have high aldosterone in my body, because I'm always eating salt on a regular basis. How much, it's impossible to know. Salt your foods to your taste buds. If you don't like salt, I have a guy who I diet down who doesn't like salt at all. He doesn't like the taste of it. I never heard of anyone like that, but that's what he told me. So he's always cramping, this guy, because he doesn't eat any salt in his diet. So what I have him do is I have him put like a teaspoon of salt in a little 2 ounces of water, and he shoots it down almost like taking a shot of alcohol. If you want to add some tequila to make it a little more appealing, you can do that too. But he does that like twice a day just to make sure he gets enough sodium into his body. But for most people, they like the taste of salt, and that's not an issue.
We're getting a lot of peak week questions. Of course, we're in the thick of the competition schedule, so we'll dip our toe in the water, Dave. If you want to maybe make a separate video, we could do that as well. Miss Buff Nugget, how to use HCTZ Diazide during peak week protocol. And then Hoodman521 wants to know, do you need to cut water to look cut a day before a show, or keep water levels and sodium levels the same to look full?
I've talked about this a lot, and it's, once again, I don't want to give you guys a template for how to dehydrate and how to fill up and dry out, because for everyone it's different. Some people I nail with a lot of diazides and I restrict sodium and water more. Other people I hardly give them any, and I hardly restrict because they don't need it. So it's based on how the person looks and how their body responds to sodium and water. And that's something that's great. The more I work with people, the more I learn their bodies that way. That's why, people who have coaches that they get in shape with, they should just stick with those people because they know their bodies. Now, I usually don't cut any sodium out of the diet till the day before. And I only cut it out during the hours of the day. When we get to the night, like around 8:39, I normally cut off fluid intake, that's the only time I put sodium back into the diet. So once they stop drinking, I let them eat salt again. So it's probably from from the night before, so it would be from Thursday night to Friday night. So 24 hours they're restricted of sodium essentially. And that's enough to really dry them out. Diazides I usually start, for most people it's like a half a diazide. And now the diazides come in different strength. The normal typical strength is 37/25 or 37/50. That means it's 37 milligrams or 37.5 milligrams hydrochlorothiazide with 25 or 50 milligrams of triamterene. Triamterene is a very small component and it doesn't really do that much compared to diazide. That's why it doesn't even matter what the dosage of that stuff is. It's the hydrochlorothiazide component that's more important. Usually it's 37 milligrams. So usually I have guys take half of that. If it's a 25 milligram one, I have them take half of it. If it's a 50 milligram one, I have them take half of it. If it's a 12.5 milligram, dose of hydrochlorothiazide, then I just have them take the whole thing. So that's pretty much, so we're looking for about 12.5, to 15 milligrams of hydrochlorothiazide component of the diazide, okay, taken twice on Friday. So usually in the morning or in the early afternoon, and then I do it at night before bed, and that's usually enough, Now some people need more, some people don't need as much, so I base it on, once again, how people look.
Howard 9, why is it at shows bubble guts aren't being dinged? It's ridiculous to someone that is 1% leaner than someone and the other guy has way better shape, balance, and overall look, but gets beat by one small fraction of dryness.
You got to understand that, when you look at pictures or video, okay, of someone on stage, and you might think that they have a protruding abdomen, the judges are really judging what they see in the mandatory poses. So if you got a guy who's got a huge gut, but when he hits a double bicep or hits a side chest, he pulls his gut in and he holds it in during all the mandatory poses, they're not going to judge him down for that, because that's how they're judging him. They're not judging him when he's standing on the sideline with his gut hanging out. So you got to remember, it's what the person looks like in the mandatories. That's what they're judging up there. Now, if the guy is letting his gut hang out in the mandatory poses and it's obvious, he's going to get scored down. I've seen it happen a million times. Believe me, I sit behind the judges at these shows. I hear them. I know what they're looking for. That's how it works. Okay, so when you're watching at home, or you see someone who captures a picture of the guy standing, in a relaxed position, and he's not even being judged, you can't say, well, that guy's got a gut, he should be marked down, because that's not how he looks when he hits the mandatory poses.
Good one here from McDonald's Zach. It's about Akeem Williams and Rafael Brandao. What is the process like for guys like Akeem and Brandao who have done 3 to 4 shows in a month span? Do they go right back into depletion after each show, or try to retain a certain look? And how taxing is that on the body?
It's not that easy to peak week after week, but it's actually easier to do it back-to-back weeks than to have like 3 or 4 weeks between a show. I'll tell you, I've done a couple shows where there was like a 3-week gap between them, and I wanted to die. You figure, well, eat whatever you want the night of the show, you're going to be all feel good. The day you go back on that diet, that Monday, you feel like you've never stopped dieting. You want to kill yourself. It's the worst, most miserable feeling to go back on a diet after a show. Luckily, if it's the next weekend, you're only depleting for 3 days, then you're right, carbing up again. But if you have to go 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks before the next show, a lot of times guys don't make it because of that. It's tough. It's really tough. But look, when you're at the professional level and you're making money from this, that's your job. If you can't, if that kind of stress and that kind of discomfort, you're not cut out for that, then you're in the wrong sport. So these guys want it so bad, they want to succeed so bad that they suck it up and they do it. Usually I let my guys eat for that Saturday. If it's like a 3-week gap, I might let them eat Sunday too, and then Monday morning they're back on the diet again. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it's got to be. Now, if you're in shape and you were in the best shape of your life for the first show, then you probably can get away with eating more. Like, I'll probably pepper these guys with more food at my discretion, not their discretion, during the week, because they don't really need to lose any more weight. I'm just trying to maintain them. But the first 3 days after the show, you kind of get a water rebound. So you don't want to be feeding them too much then, because then they're going to gain 40 pounds, and then it's going to be a nightmare trying to get that water off. So you got to go slow initially. And once again, that comes with coaching experience.
Again, be remiss if we didn't remind you that right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel, an exclusive all-access interview with Branch Warren, one of the most legendary bodybuilders of this era, tells all some funny stories, a look into his career and everything that he has going on. And he has a lot going on in his post-bodybuilding, or as he's transitioning, I guess, into his post-bodybuilding career. So check it out, Branch Warren, right now at RxMuscle.com. Aesthetics with ends. Dave, summer bulking advice for amateur bodybuilders. I'm 20 years old, Been training for 4 years, but looking to grow significantly more muscle through my 20s. It just seems counterproductive to diet down for summer since my main priority is to put on muscle mass. Thoughts on just staying in a surplus? No shows in sight. Size is the main goal.
I say keep putting size on until you can't do it anymore. Sometimes guys hit a point and they're just plateauing and they just can't eat any more food and they're stuck. And in those cases, I diet them a little bit. They don't know that I'm dieting. I cut their food back a little, I give them a little cardio, but not like anything severe. Believe me, as soon as you take food away from a bodybuilder, even though they don't even want to eat it, they get hungry all of a sudden. All of a sudden they get hungry out of nowhere. They start. I'll have guys, they're like, Dave, I can't eat any more food. This is terrible, I don't know what to do. And I'll change up their diet a little bit and I'll take some food out. And within 3 days, they're like, oh, I'm starving, I'm fucking starving, I'm never gonna grow. So sometimes you gotta just shake things up. Whenever things are not working, do what's intuitively the opposite of what you think you'd wanna do. So in other words, if you're not growing and you're stuck, don't give people more food, that's obvious. You do the opposite, you give them less food. And you do that for a week or two, and then you put it back in, and then they go back to growing again.
Similarly related to summer, be fit. Dave, tips for keeping diet in check while traveling on vacation and enjoying the vacation. Should one do a protein and veggie-based diet throughout the day and then have a good meal with family later in the day? I want to enjoy myself but not get sloppy.
Yeah. If you starve yourself during the early part of the day, you will invariably way overdo it at night, okay? The key is not to miss meals when you're on vacation. That means that you probably have to bring some protein shakes with you, or at least some protein bars, so that you're not skipping meals, because you don't want to build up that hunger. Obviously, when you're on vacation, it's stupid to be dieting, like where you're cooking your food in the hotel room in a microwave oven. There's always healthy choices no matter where you go. What I would do is that when I'm on vacation is, and I'll eat, healthy. In other words, I don't like to feel crappy. So most of my meals, if I go to a restaurant, I'm not going to order French fries every meal and ice cream sundaes. I order what I like to eat, but within my high protein, moderate fat, moderate carb type planning. I might have a piece of salmon, a salad, maybe a small bowl of rice. Okay, and I'll do that. Meals like that. I might have a protein shake during the day. Just in between meals, so I don't have to eat 6 meals out. I'm talking about when I was competing. And then what would happen is maybe at night I want to go out to a dinner, and that's when I would eat a little bit more food than I normally would, because now I'm going to enjoy. Maybe I'm going to have a plate of pasta. I'm going to have maybe a little small dessert or something like that. But I treat myself for one meal out of the day that I'm away. The other meals I'm still eating out. I'm just not eating crap every single meal, because then you feel terrible. So you can always eat when you're away. There's always healthy choices in every single restaurant, including the fast food places. It's just a matter of what you decide to choose. If you decide to be a fat slob and eat everything in sight and make yourself sick and get all bloated, then you're going to be miserable. So the key to going away is planning. You can't just go and wing it. Matter of fact, when I get on an airplane to fly anywhere, I always bring food with me, and I always bring extra food with me. So let's say I'm flying for 2.5 hours up to 3 hours up to New York. I know I'm going to be in the airport for at least 2 hours before that, okay? I bring enough food so that I have at least one meal more than I need. You know why? Because you get stuck in airports. You get flight delays. I always have extra food. And if I get flight delays and I'm in an airport, I buy another meal while I'm there. Just so that, once again, in case I get stuck on the plane, on the runway or something like that, or we get delayed in New York, whatever the case may be. I'm always thinking one step ahead, just in case. It doesn't kill you if you have to throw a meal in the garbage. It's better than not having a meal and having to go 6 hours without eating anything on the plane. Then you're going to want to murder the person next to you.
Ty trains. Dave, you mentioned in a previous video that you believe that testosterone may trip the lipid profile on a blood test. Can you please expound on that? And do you believe a TRT dose is that detrimental to a lipid profile?
Here's my theory. I've said it before. My new thinking is that, first of all, there's basically two variables or two test variables that we analyze when we decide, are we at risk for coronary heart disease, at least from a standpoint of blockages in the arteries. And that's your LDL cholesterol and your HDL cholesterol carriers. The LDLs being the bad guys, the HDLs being the good guys. So we want HDLs to be high, we want LDLs to be low. If your LDLs are low or in control, and that should happen if you're on a good diet, if if you eat well and you're not overeating carbs and sugars and stuff like that, your LDLs are going to, and you're taking a good fiber supplement, your LDLs will be in normal range. If they are, it doesn't even matter really what the HDLs are. As long as the LDLs are in range, your HDLs are irrelevant. Now, we know that anabolic steroids suppress HDLs. Now, we don't know if they're suppressing the HDLs or it's just an artifact of the testosterone, of what the anabolics are doing. But the bottom line is if your LDLs, the bad stuff, is low and normal, then you don't have anything to worry about. If your LDLs are super high and your HDLs are suppressed, now we got problems, because now that's a perfect scenario for coronary artery disease to start setting in. Now, if you have a family predisposition and you just have naturally high LDLs, okay, even though you're eating a good, clean diet, then you got to do something about it. You know, you can try the fiber supplements. You can take my essential fatty acid supplement, Omega Lyse, to help get those profiles down. Taking a good monounsaturated fat like macadamia nut oil a couple times a day is going to keep those levels down as well. If that doesn't work and you've exhausted every avenue naturally, you might have to take one of these cholesterol, suppression medications. I don't like them. The statins, I hate them. They have side effects, okay? And most people, I feel, can, with diet, get those LDLs into normal range. When you stop anabolic steroids, the HDLs usually go up again, okay? So that tells me that there's some kind of correlation directly to them. I think personally that the anabolic steroids make the HDLs work better, thus you need less of them, okay? What they basically are is they're vacuum cleaners that clean up the rogue cholesterol that's being littered all over the body by the LDLs, okay? So if you have higher efficiency vacuum cleaners, you don't need as many of them, right? And I think that's what's happening. The testosterone and the drugs you're taking, the anabolic steroids, are making your HDLs work better so you have less of them. That's my theory. There's no proof out there yet, or there's a little bit, but there's not enough to convincingly say that's what's going on. But the key is keep your LDLs in range.
Let's go to prime time. Dave, what are your views? I mean, we talked about water, we talked about salt earlier on, but prime time wants to know your view on salt baths to dry out before a show. I saw Jose Raymond have his client sitting in a tub of salt water before a show to drop water.
Epsom salts, baths can draw water out of the body because it's such a concentrated solution in the tub that your bodily tissues will leach water out of the cells to go to the salty area. That's just, that's simple, physics. Water goes to a higher concentration of minerals. The problem with Epsom salt baths is you can really over dehydrate yourself. To me, I think it's too risky and unpredictable. If you stay in the tub too long, you could over dehydrate. I'd rather personally just use a diuretic like Diazide and do fluid restriction. Too risky to start doing crazy stuff the day before a show. All it can do is screw you up. I just think it's not reproducible and it's not measurable, and everyone responds differently. So I say don't do it.
Let's go to Lord of Phantasms. Dave, could you give your opinion on doing Milosh's insulin protocol on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, and if this could be beneficial for a natural lifter with a fast metabolism wanting to get an effective workout in when training first thing in the morning?
Well, if you're injecting 60 units of insulin, you're not going to be a natural bodybuilder anymore. So that's the first flaw in your idea. Second flaw is I just don't think for most people that regimen is something that's going to do good for you. I think most people will get fat off of it. They'll get really bloated off of it, and it's not going to be beneficial. Now, if you're a 300-pound bodybuilder with superior genetics and a crazy metabolism and you do Milosh's regimen, it'll probably do something. You'll probably look better on it. You'll probably be full and you'll probably get some benefits out of it. I just think it's extreme. I don't think it really is necessary. I think for most people, it's not going to work well at all.
We had a question on, here we go, on cupping. I don't know if we've ever talked about cupping before, but Yusuf Diab wants to know the difference between cupping and donating blood and which one is more effective and when is the best time to do so.
Yeah, I've done a video on cupping, believe it or not. Rosetta Mortati came to my house in New York and she did some cupping on me. I got to pull it out. Matter of fact, we just put up an RxMuscle Classic video. I did a Castor Oil Detox I put up this past weekend. Well, it was I think right before that one that she did this cupping thing. And what it basically is, it's like these cups that go on you and you create a vacuum under the cup and it supposedly draws toxins out of your body. Which is way, way different than donating blood. Donating blood, you're actually getting rid of red blood cells and plasma from your bloodstream. You're diluting down what's in your blood right now, thus getting rid of, I guess there's toxins in your blood that you're getting rid of too, but you're actually getting rid of red blood cells. So your bone marrow has to then reproduce more. I just actually did a show with Carl Lenore, a TV show, Carl's been hosting a radio show called Superhuman Radio for 13 years now. And we were talking about, how to detox the body. And one of the things he likes to do is every 60 days he donates a pint of blood to get rid of just extra junk from the body. It's kind of like doing an oil change on your body. You get rid of a couple pints of oil, you put some new oil back in. But personally, the cupping, it seems interesting. I've had it done a couple times by different people. I don't know if it really did anything. It left some big welts on my back wherever the cups were. And bloodletting, giving out blood or donating blood is good if you're running very, very high red blood cell hematocrits, so you don't want to have any kind of clots form because your blood's too thick. That's usually what that's used for.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. And what we like to do every week, we like to feature a retailer that carries a Species Nutrition line of products. Well, we're working with a company out in the UK. We get questions all the time from fans from the United Kingdom. Where can they get Species from? Where can they get Species from? Well, Predator Nutrition has been a long-time distributor of Species Nutrition. We're currently working with them on a couple of things. We're going to be releasing it on an episode of Ask Dave over the course of the next week or two. So we wanted to give them a shout-out. We also wanted to send birthday wishes to Species athlete Lizzie Goddard. She also is based in the United Kingdom. She's a competitor out there. She's a physical therapist. She's also the daughter of Brian Goddard, who carries Species Nutrition. Dave, a good friend of yours, who carries a loyal retailer of Species Nutrition. So we wanted to send a special birthday shout out to Lizzie Goddard. If you want to follow her, you can follow her on Instagram, Lizzie.Goddard1. Let's go back to the questions. Payman Kamrani, Dave, this is a good one about Craig Titus. I want to know how it is that a guy like Craig Titus can do so much gear and recreational drugs and still be okay. Are his genetics just that good or what?
He's in jail. It's called mandatory detoxification. It's easy to live a long life when you can't do drugs in jail. Craig was in jail twice. Once before he actually went away for murder, but it's called forced cleaning out. He did his drugs hard, but he didn't do them long enough to actually damage himself, obviously, and he went to jail. And he's you don't do drugs in jail, although I'm sure some people do, but he's not doing excessive amounts of drugs in jail, and so he's something about jail a lot of people don't know is there's nothing to do there all day. All these guys do is sleep, they work out, they eat. The food's not the greatest quality there, but there's really no stress there other than the fact that you hope no one kills you. Especially where he is. Most jails are not that dangerous. I think because he's a murderer, obviously, or he's probably in a much higher, security system, which is there's a certain degree of stress. But after a while, these guys just kind of get used to the whole system, and that's why a lot of guys. Now, the average age of life in prison, especially for lifers, is not really that good. But he was forced to stop taking drugs, and that's how he did it.
Tomas Anastasi, Dave, what about glycemic index? Should you be concerned about consuming low glycemic carbs when dieting as opposed to higher glycemic carbs? I eat basmati rice and cream of rice for my carb meals and was wondering if I should switch to lower GI carb sources.
Off season, I like to do lower glycemic carbs because that's when you have more of a chance of gaining fat because you're eating excessive amounts of food. Pre-contest, the carbs I usually give guys, if I'm giving them carbs, are usually, some of them are high glycemic because I'm not giving them a lot. So I know it's not getting stored as fat, it's just getting stored as glycogen in the muscle. So sometimes getting the carbs in quicker, pre-contest is better. So when I carb people up, I certainly use high glycemic carbs to get them in fast. So once again, in a dieting state, because you're restricting how many carbs you're eating, you really don't have to worry about getting fat from them.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Again, right now at RxMuscle.com, one-on-one exclusive with Thackeray Mubarak discussing his the latest with his kidney health, and of course, all-access interview with Branch Warren, RxMuscle.com, and the YouTube channel. If you're not already following us, subscribe below. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. For For Tyler Short and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.